Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on subcontracting plans. My name is Diana Dao David. I work with new vendors, and I am one of the two small business specialists. Joining me today is my counterpart, Andrea Lang. And if this looks at all familiar, know that you are not experiencing deja vu. We actually did do a webinar on subcontracting last June 2022. Seeing as this topic is crucial to our large vendors and government contracting, we decided to do a second webinar on subcontracting. Now, before we begin, I do want to clarify who this presentation is intended for. This webinar is for large businesses that are currently CPP-approved vendors that are awarded or will be awarded contracts over $750,000. For today's agenda, we are going to go over the specific subcontracting requirements for the USDA Foods Program vendors. We'll talk about USDA small business goals and show how our subcontracting plan or paper plan template that we've created for our vendors and how it works and all the steps for this. Afterwards, we'll talk about reporting your subcontracting actuals as a summary subcontracting reporting in the electronic subcontracting reporting system. Then we'll go into some common subcontracting mistakes that we've seen over this past year. And last but not least, we'll go over any questions that you may have. Now, a few housekeeping rules. We ask that you please mute your microphones throughout this entire presentation. And for any questions, please use the chat box function. To do this, please click on the chat button at the bottom of your screen. When you do that, a white box will appear on the right side of your screen and you can type your question there. And so actually, if Angie, could we move the cursor to the right side if you don't mind?
Like right here?
The cursor's in the middle of the screen.
Oh, I see.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. And then we will try to answer any questions that come through the chat box as we end the presentation. Now, let's dive right into subcontracting requirements. So who needs to submit a subcontracting plan? Well, according to the Federal Acquisitions Regulations, more commonly known as FAR and public law, any large business that is awarded a contract over $750,000 must submit a subcontracting plan. But what is a subcontracting plan? So a subcontracting plan is a document that discusses how your company will provide the maximum practicable opportunities to small businesses and other small businesses within certain socioeconomic categories. And now when we talk about subcontracting plans, summary reports, and what's due and when, the best way to think about the process is in a timeline form that we have on this slide. So for step one, in August, we typically reach out to all of our large vendors, informing them that if the company anticipates being awarded a contract over $750,000 for the upcoming year, so in this case, 2024, you will need to submit a subcontracting plan. The subcontracting plan will be due by Monday, October 2nd. And this timeline falls in line with the FAR and what is required from OSW and from SBA. Now for step two, your company takes the time for the next few months to create a subcontracting plan and submit the subcontracting plan to CPP by October 2nd. Step three, CPP will be reviewing the plans to ensure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, and then we'll pass that plan on to the next approval process down the approval chain, which we'll talk more in detail in the next few slides. And lastly, step four, we're going to fast forward to the following October. So we're talking about October 30th, 2024. In 2024, we will ask you to submit your subcontracting findings and actual dollar amounts in ESRS as summary subcontracting report. There are various types of subcontracting plans. The type of subcontracting plan that commodity procurement requests from vendors is called a commercial plan. Commercial plans are required on a yearly basis and not with every contract. A commercial plan will cover the entire year for a company, which means that you will not have to submit another plan until the following year. So who's reviewing the plan? First, Andrea Lang and myself will look over the plan. If there are any items that need to be corrected, then we will be in contact with you over any changes that might need to happen. Once the plan looks good to go, we'll go ahead and send the plan to the contracting officer. And throughout the process, we will copy the contracting officers and the contracting specialist on any communication with the vendor. Next, the contracting officer will sign off on the plans, after which the plans are then sent to OSDW and then the SBA Procurement Center representative for signature. Once everyone has approved the plan, OSDW will then send us a copy of the plan and will then send your company and your local SBA office a copy as well. In your plan, you must list the specific items that your company plans to subcontract. The term subcontracting can be often misleading when it comes to food contracts. We're not just looking for items that your company uses to make a finished product, such as ingredients. We want to see a variety of goods and services such as packaging, security, maintenance, landscaping, IT services, and much more. The only items that you should not include in your subcontracting plan are the items that are listed on the right side of the screen, such as income taxes, salaries, lease payments, etc. Now, subcontracting goals is probably one of the most important and frustrating portions of a subcontracting plan. 99.9% of the time, a plan is rejected because of their goals. Subcontracting goals are just that, goals. They are dollar amounts and percentages that your company plans to use for small businesses and other socioeconomic categories, such as small business or small disadvantaged businesses, women-owned small businesses, hub zones, veteran-owned small businesses, and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Your company's commercial subcontracting plan must list their subcontracting goals. And now, as you might know, the federal government loves their acronyms. We've talked about CPP, AMS, OSDW, etc. If you're new to subcontracting, it can be incredibly confusing with the variety of acronyms. So here on the slide are some key acronyms that you will need to familiarize yourself with when discussing subcontracting with various businesses. As you can see, small business is, the acronym for that is SB, large business is LB, small disadvantaged businesses, SDB, women-owned small business is WOSB, service-disabled veteran-owned small business is SDVOSB, historically underutilized business zones is HC or hub zone, and lastly, veteran-owned small business is VOSB. Now, this is a table that we took from the first page of the subcontracting plan template. You can see in bold some of the acronyms that we mentioned in the previous slide. The percentages in red on the right side are actually the USDA's own subcontracting goals. And now, are we asking you to meet these goals? No. Well, if you think you're able to do that, that would be great. But these are all goals. They should act as a guideline for you. You will be able to adjust those goals in dollar amounts as necessary to ensure that they are realistic and attainable for your company. And so with that being said, here are a few key reminders when it comes to goals. They should be reasonable and attainable. but don't underestimate your numbers. Your company should have high achieving goals, knowing that they will make a good faith effort to achieve them. And double dipping is allowed. So what does this mean? Double dipping means you can count a small business in different categories. For example, let's say you are subcontracting with a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, or SDVOSB for IT services. Not only can you count the SDVOSB under the SDVOSB category, but you can also count the SDVOSB as a veteran-owned business and a small business. Over the years, your goals should be improving. The more that you work on your plan, the better you'll be at meeting the goals. But always, always be sure to document. Please be as detailed as possible. Know that we want to know how you have developed your plan, if you're running into any issues, what these issues are, and how do you plan to remedy these issues. And last but not least, 0 is not a goal. Let me say that again. 0 is not a goal. There should be no zeros, no 0 percentages, or $0 amounts in your plan. You need to have a percentage and a goal. Remember that we are asking for you to make good faith efforts to meet these goals. And so you'll see this last point throughout the presentation. And for now, I'm going to switch it over to my counterpart, Andrea. She's going to talk more about completing your subcontracting plan, also known as the paper plan, and submitting your subcontracting summary report. Take it away, Andrea.
Thanks, Tiana. So good afternoon, everyone. Before we get into the paper plan, let's test your knowledge on subcontracting goals. So as an example, we have here a breakdown of a company's subcontracting goals and what they should look like. You'll notice that each category lists a dollar amount and a percentage. And so if we look and see, every category has a dollar amount and a percentage, no zeros, everything looks good. And while it would be fantastic if the company met or exceeded each dollar amount and percentage in this subcontracting plan, we would understand that these goals are just that, they're goals. So as long as your company makes a good faith effort and documents how you are conducting and improving your outreach, you will not be penalized. Okay, so here's an example of a company's subcontracting goals that do not hit the mark. So I'm going to give everyone like a few minutes. Let's make this interactive. Look over the goals and feel free to comment in the chat if you see anything that's wrong. I'll give everyone about 30 seconds. All right. Well, here are the same goals that we had in the previous slide, but the main issues are highlighted in red. So the first one that I certainly hope you got is that the big 0 that you see in the veteran-owned small business or VOSB category. So we're going to say this multiple times during our presentation, but 0 is not a goal. There is a reason why we say this multiple times. It's a common trend when we receive subcontracting plans. So something else that you may not have thought of is the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business or SDVOSB goal. So if you recall from a couple slides earlier where we're talking about double dipping, an SDVOSB is more than just an SDVOSB. It's also considered a veteran-owned small business or VOSB and a small business. Therefore, if this company has a goal of $5,000 to SDVOSBs, then they also should have a goal towards the veteran-owned small business and should not have put down that 0. And one other thing that may or may not be a mistake, but might raise a red flag that we would want to check on, is that small disadvantaged business or SDB category. So having a goal of $16,000 and 16% is amazing, but it is significantly higher than expected. So even the USDA goal for SDB is 5%. So in this situation, like I said, we would probably circle back with the vendor just to make sure that the calculations are correct, and if there was any error. Okay, so now that we've gone through USDA goals, let's talk about the USDA subcontracting template or the paper plan. Commodity Procurement has worked with OSTBU and SBA to create a subcontracting plan template for you to use. This plan contains hyperlinks to the FAR clauses for subcontracting, and I would highly recommend reviewing those FAR clauses that are highlighted in the paper plan to familiarize yourself with the subcontracting requirements. As a reminder, we have sent out our 2024 templates to our large businesses, I think about a week and a half ago. So if you have any questions or need help, please contact myself and Deanna. After which we might need to loop in some extra help with OSTBU and SBA for some additional assistance. We're all here to help you create a successful plan, so please don't be shy in requesting a meeting or asking a question to one of us. So a few tips for the paper plan. Use your company's unique entity identifier, or UEI, instead of your DUNS. Be as detailed as possible when writing about the products your company subcontracts for, the type of outreach your company plans to do, and how your company determines which business to subcontract to. Look at those FAR clauses hyperlinked in the plan. You want to make sure you understand what you're signing off on. Make sure you use available resources. Review the SBA website to find events in your area for specific socioeconomic areas. If you are having trouble finding vendors in particular categories, which happens a lot, look through the dynamic small business search. And lastly, work with your commercial market representative or CMR. So SBA has 6 CMRs that assist large businesses to help find those socioeconomic programs they tend to struggle finding. So like if you're having trouble finding a woman-owned small business, or you're having trouble finding hub zones, you can contact your CMR and the designated in your area. By visiting the SBA website, you can find out who your CMR is and they can work with you. And once again, have to say it, 0 is not a goal. And trust me, this is not the last time you will hear this in this presentation. All right, so you've submitted your subcontracting paper plan. It was approved. You have your goals, its plans in place. Now we're going to fast forward to the following year. So let's pretend it's October 2024. And that's when you have to report your actual dollar amounts and findings in the Electronic Subcontracting Reporting System, or ESRS. So as a refresher from earlier, your company will be reporting the previous year's subcontracting performance results online through the ESRS system. This is part of the subcontracting requirements with the FAR. At the beginning of October, so around October, first week of October this year, Deanna and I will send out email reminders to all of our large businesses that submitted subcontracting paper plans this previous year to log on to ESRS and submit your summary subcontracting report. Now, in this email that we send you, we're going to provide a user guide and instructions on how to fill out the report. Once you submit the plan, Deanna and I will go into ESRS and review the report. If everything is filled out correctly, we'll accept the plan or report. I should stick with one word. I don't want to interchange the word plan report. It's a report. If there are items that need to be corrected, we will reject it. Once rejected, the report's going to bounce back to your company for, we're going to ask for some corrections. You can make the corrections and resubmit. So there is information that you will need to fill out in your summary subcontracting report. that is more AMS specific. So let's start off with the code. So you will need to list the AMS code, which is 12K2. It is crucial you add 12K2 to the report. Otherwise, we will not receive a copy of that report. It'll get bounced off to another agency. At the bottom of the report is a spot where you can place email addresses. So be sure to add my email, which is Andrea, ANDREA .lang, LANG .gov, and Deanna's email, which is Deanna, DIANA .dow, DAU @usda.gov. So by adding our email addresses to the bottom of the report, we will both receive notification that your company has submitted the plan. When creating a summary subcontracting report, ESRS has two options, individual and commercial. Remember, the subcontracting plan you turned in was commercial. Therefore, you will be creating a commercial report. You should also list your company as the prime contractor. Attributable percentage. Now, an attributable percentage is one of the top reasons why a plan is rejected. So when entering an attributable percentage, the number should be super low. When we were asking for an attributable percentage, that's a mouthful. We're asking for this, out of all the business your company does, what portion of that business goes to government contracts? So whatever percentage that is, and it's typically a very low number, that is the attributable percentage. And of course, if you are new to ESRS, you may need to create a new login. Any assistance you need with the system itself, you will probably need to contact the ESRS help desk, which is 1-866-606-8220, option 5. If you have questions on the report itself, like, assistance with how, is it commercial, is it individual, things like that, then you would need to contact myself and or Deanna. So if you need assistance with subcontracting, there are resources available to you. I know we already talked about the commercial market representatives, or CMR. And remember, CMR tends to assist large businesses to help find those socioeconomic programs they struggle with. But another resource, which you may find surprising, is your local Apex Accelerator, or what was formerly known as Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. So if you don't know, Apex Accelerators are located all over the country and offer free assistance on government contracting. So a lot of people assume that Apex Accelerators are only for small businesses, but that's not true. They also can assist large businesses in finding subcontracting opportunities and helping them with their subcontracting plan. And of course, there's us, the USDA. So don't forget to contact the department's OSTBU office and Deanna or myself. Deanna and I often, as we say, we meet one-on-one with our large vendors to provide assistance. And our contact information will be at the end of this presentation again. Okay, so there are some common mistakes that we see every year with regards to subcontracting plans. So let's take a look at the paper plan and go into some more details regarding these mistakes. So let me go ahead and do a new share. Okay. So you guys can see that. So here is our 2024 subcontracting plan. So the first thing that I think is a very common mistake is confusing the paper plan and the summary subcontracting report. We'll send out these emails about submitting the paper plan, and folks will say, but I already submitted it. And we're like, we didn't get it. And they're like, no, I submitted it online on ESRS. Well, that's actually not the plan we're asking for. So it's confusing because they both are due in October. I can totally understand how you can get discombobulated. So just remember that the paper plan template is provided to you in August and is intended for you to provide estimates for the upcoming year. And the paper plan is due on October 1st. The summary subcontracting report is also due in October, but it's for you to list your actual subcontracting dollar amounts from the previous year. Also, the summary subcontracting report is all online via ESRS website. Okay, so the next thing that we tend to see is the unique entity identifier, or UEI. I know we mentioned this earlier, but we still have a lot of folks that submit their paper plan with the DUNS number. And the DUNS number is just, it's so last season, it's not even funny. So you need to provide that UEI number on your paper plan. And if you don't know what the UEI number, it is similar to DUNS. It is a set of numbers and letters which replace the DUNS number that is unique to your company. And you can find your UEI on your company's SAM registration. So if you receive a plan and it's got the DUNS number in it, we're going to be sending it back to you and asking you to add that UEI. Okay. You see here, we've got the table. Let me just go to the, oops, wrong thing. So if we go down here, we've got that familiar table here. Remember that 0 is not a goal. So make sure you put in dollar amounts. If your dollar amounts do not match these percentages, that's okay. But make sure that there are no zeros in here. So, let's say you have a goal of 1.5% with VOSB. That's fine. Just make sure your dollar amount reflects that, and you can easily just go in and change it. Okay. Also, here are those hyperlinks for the FAR clauses that I mentioned. So another mistake that we see a lot is this second page. Remember, the more information we have, the better. So you need to not ignore the second page, list the direct and indirect costs that you have. You need to provide explanations as to the type of outreach you are conducting to recruit small businesses. If you are having issues finding small businesses in certain socioeconomic areas, let us know that and what steps you're going to take to remedy this. So you see here is where we're asking for your indirect and direct costs. Down here, we're going to ask for that description of method to develop your goals. We're asking for you to tell us what outreach activities, what you're doing. If you're having trouble, this is where you would put that. Scroll down to the next page. Here's where it gets a little confusing, but we're talking about indirect goals here. And for this, we want you to provide an explanation as to how you determine spending on your indirect costs. And remember, indirect costs are things like IT services, janitorial services, landscaping, things like that. A lot of large businesses will use a pro rate method for indirect costs throughout the year. We're just asking you to provide an explanation as to what your company does. So how does your company determine what to spend on indirect costs? And last, but certainly not least, is your signature. Can't tell you how many times we've had folks, they'll put down type their name and everything else in here, but they don't put in a signature. Make sure you sign your document. It could be an electronic signature, or you could go ahead and print it out, sign it, and scan it back in. Doesn't matter, but make sure you sign your plan. Okay, and again, here are some of the more of those FAR clauses to read over. Okay, so we're going to switch gears and we are going to go over to our summary subcontracting report. So here are some common mistakes we have with this. Let me just scroll down here. Okay, first problem. First of all, before we even get into the summary subcontracting report, make sure that you have your login information. So ESRS uses login.gov, so make sure that you have a username and password. You may have to create that. The next point is going to be that commercial. Here's where we will see a lot of times folks will put individual plan rather than commercial. It's going to look a lot different if you do an individual plan. So always, always, always check off commercial. Also, make sure that you enter in the proper period, reporting period. So we'll go down here, show the reporting period. The reporting period. Make sure you put in the correct reporting period. So for example, we are going to be sending out the requests for you guys to complete your ESRS in October. So the report that we're looking for, the actual dollar amounts that we're looking for this year are going to be for 2023. In our head, that's going to be the previous year in terms of the government. And next year, in October 2024, we're going to ask for your 2024 information. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. All right. So if we keep going down here, make sure you add your NAICS code for your product. It's very important. Here's where you put your dollar amounts. Now, in this situation, if you have a zero, that's okay. This is the only time where you can put a zero in somewhere, and it's okay when it comes to subcontracting. So as a reminder, zero for paper plan, not good. You want to have a zero, not if you want to, but if you have a zero, that's okay in these areas. Okay. I don't see the attributable percentage. It may not be here. Let me see. Where is that attributable percentage? All right. So, oh, here it is. Okay, so the number 10 portion, I don't know if you guys can see that. That's where you put in your agency code. Remember, USDA AMS is 12K2, and then your attributable percentage, and that should be a very low number. Last but not least, the remarks section. Always, always, always add your remarks. You want to make sure that you cover your tracks. So you need to provide an explanation as to how your company fared this year with subcontracting. Again, did you have trouble meeting goals? What events are you attending? What steps are you taking to meet subcontracting goals for next year? Remember, if your numbers are low or if you have a zero, that's fine. Just make sure you need to provide that justification. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so as I mentioned, if you have any questions, please contact myself or Deanna for assistance on anything we went over today. Again, my email is andrea.lang@usda.gov, and then there's deanna.dow@usda.gov. All right, so now let's go over some questions. We did receive some questions from during the registration that we will go over first. And then we're going to open up the floor for some additional questions if you have any. Just remember to use that chat box. But here are a couple questions that we received already. So one question was how are we to ensure that we are reporting accurately? I think that's a great question. I think it's something that a lot of our vendors can struggle with. So I really want you to look at your entire year of spending to determine your dollar amounts and your goals and your percentages. We do have a cover sheet that we complete for you, and that's where we enter in your dollar amounts and your percentages using a formula to determine if your numbers are accurate. If they are off, then what we'll typically do is send you an email and ask you to take a look at those numbers again and recalculate. If you're still having trouble, that's where we can bring in the CMR or your Apex Accelerator to see if they can help you with your formulations. Another question we got, and I thought this was a good one, are subcontracting plans required for Section 32 programs? Now, Section 32 programs, for those of you who don't know, those are when we receive purchases that are outside of our normal purchase schedule. So for example, these are what used to be called bonus buys. They're no longer called bonus buys, but they're called Section 32. It's an additional purchase that we make. It's not something we make as part of our norm. We do require, if you are a large business and you are submitting bids and winning contracts over $750,000 on Section 32 bids and programs and products, that you do submit a subcontracting plan. A lot of the times our Section 32 purchases tend to be repeats. So, we'll have the same product maybe a couple times in a span of a few years. So we have the same players that are pretty much in our system participating. So yes, make sure all vendors, all large vendors who receive a contract over $750,000 have to submit a plan. We got a couple of questions from non-food vendors about subcontracting opportunities. So if there's any non-food vendors that have logged on here and they're looking for subcontracting opportunities, I would highly recommend going to the OSTBU website and viewing their subcontracting directory. The subcontracting directory is something that is posted every year, and it lists the large vendors, not just for AMS, but for the entire department, what specific services they're looking for, and who to contact. So large businesses have kind of like a small business specialist where they are responsible for working with small businesses with subcontracting. Okay, so let's take a look at the Q&A and see. Okay. How can we get a hold of you if you have a question at a later date? So if you believe that you're a large, so a question is, what if we didn't receive the paper plan this past week? So how do we get one? Well, if you are on this plan, if you're on this webinar, you haven't received a paper plan, you can email us at andrea.lang, L-A-N-G, at USDA.gov, or Diana, DIANA.DAU@USDA.gov. And we can certainly provide you with the plan, a copy of the plan. What if you are considered a small business but are awarded a contract for over $750,000 through Section 32? Great question. If you are a small business, you don't have to submit anything. So small businesses do not have to submit anything. That's the beauty of being a small business. And also, can I just say, that is why it is so important that you get the correct NAICS code in your SAM, because we look and determine what is a small business in SAM. So if you have a different NAICS code and maybe that NAICS code will mark you as a large, we're going to ask for a plan, when in reality, you guys are, hold up, we're small, we're supposed to be small. So make sure that your NAICS code is the one that you're supposed to use. And you can find the NAICS code table that commodity procurement uses by going to our master solicitation. And there is a table at the bottom, I think it's page 39. So make sure you take a look at that. And again, if you did not receive a copy of the plan, if you're a large business, we will definitely send that to you. Okay. First time we are looking to sign up for USDA procurement plan. What do you recommend we need to do before? Well, if we have any, I know some of the questions we got because this is new vendor webinar, but so if we have any new vendors, maybe you're large, maybe you're small, and your potential vendors, you're not approved with commodity procurement yet, please feel free to email myself or Deanna. We have a new vendor email that's newvendor@usda.gov, NEWVENDOR@usda.gov. And we can get you started because before you even submit a plan, you got to be an approved vendor with commodity procurement. All right. So those are all the questions that I see. I think we've pretty much answered everything. All right. So I want to thank everybody for participating today. Really appreciate it. We have recorded this webinar. We will work on getting this uploaded to our website. We will also distribute the slides along with the notes. I thank everybody for their time and consideration today. And if you have any questions, remember, please send us an email, and we're excited to be working with you all on subcontracting plans for fiscal year 2024. All right. Thank you so much for joining.